50 years ago, the Apollo 17 astronauts made the last human visit to the Moon. A significant milestone in our journey into the cosmos, this mission marked the end of an era of lunar exploration. The astronauts of Apollo 17, under the leadership of Commander Eugene Cernan, were the last to tread on the lunar surface, the last to gaze at our home planet from the lunar horizon, and the last to journey more than 400 miles away from Earth. The context in which Apollo 17 took place was one of shifting priorities and waning public interest. The mission unfolded against a backdrop of socio-political change and economic constraints. The late 60s and early 70s were a time of tension and transformation. The Vietnam War, poverty, urban problems, and environmental crises were vying for attention and resources. Even as the Apollo 17 astronauts were making their historic journey, the winds of change were blowing at NASA. 2 years before Apollo 17, NASA had made the decision to delete Apollos 18 and 19 from its mission roster, choosing instead to concentrate resources on the development of the space shuttle. This was a clear indication of NASA's shifting focus, away from the Moon and towards more Earth-centric objectives. The public's interest in lunar exploration had also begun to wane. Once Neil Armstrong and Buzz Aldrin had stepped on the lunar surface in July 1969, many Americans questioned the necessity of further lunar missions. We had beaten the Soviets, proven American technological superiority, and accomplished the fundamental purpose of Project Apollo. The later landings, despite yielding a wealth of scientific data and lunar samples, were perceived by many as an extravagant expenditure in a time of more pressing earthly concerns. As Commander Cernan stepped off the lunar surface, he could not have predicted that it would take more than 5 decades to send humans back. He was aware that lean times were ahead for NASA, and that it could be 2 decades before a new human lunar program would be feasible. But even in his wildest dreams, or perhaps nightmares, he could not have foreseen that it would be over half a century before we would return to the Moon. In the years following Apollo 17, NASA's priorities drastically changed. The lunar surface, once a symbol of human achievement, was left untouched as the space agency shifted its gaze closer to home. As the last footprints from the Apollo missions slowly faded on the Moon, NASA was crafting a new vision, one that revolved around the space shuttle program and the development of a space station. The dream of a permanent presence in space was a compelling one. The space shuttle was initially sold to the Nixon administration as a means to make spaceflight much more affordable, positioning it as a crew and cargo transport vehicle to a permanent space base. By the early 80s, under the leadership of Ronald Reagan, a space enthusiast himself, NASA was pushing what they believed was the next logical step to a sustainable space infrastructure, a space station. In late 1983, Reagan gave his approval for what would eventually become the International Space Station. However, the road to this new era of space exploration was not an easy one. NASA faced significant political and financial hurdles. Congress and 2 presidential administrations had been trimming NASA's budget since 1967, prioritizing more immediate concerns, such as the Vietnam War, poverty, and environmental crises, over space exploration. This, coupled with the cancellation of Apollos 18 and 19 to save money and focus on the space shuttle, signaled the end of an era. In addition, NASA grappled with technical setbacks and public scrutiny. The space shuttle finally orbited in 1981, after thin budgets and challenging new technologies caused years of delay. The agency was also recovering from the Challenger disaster of 1986, and was under pressure to advance a space station project already years late and billions over budget. Despite the promise of a new era in space exploration, NASA found itself facing a challenging future. As the last humans to walk on the Moon looked back at Earth, little did they know that it would take more than 5 decades for their successors to follow in their footsteps. The space shuttle finally orbited in 1981, marking a new chapter in space exploration. And what a chapter it was, filled with triumphs, tragedies, and technological marvels. The space shuttle program, initiated by NASA, was a significant leap forward in our quest to conquer the cosmos. It represented the first reusable spacecraft, a feat that not only demonstrated our technological prowess, but also our inventiveness in making space travel more cost-effective and sustainable. The space shuttle wasn't just a space vehicle. It was a symbol of hope and aspiration. It was a workhorse that ferried astronauts, satellites, and scientific instruments to and from space, helping to expand our knowledge of the universe. Moreover, it played a pivotal role in the construction of one of the most ambitious projects ever undertaken in space, the International Space Station, or ISS. The ISS, a marvel of international cooperation and engineering, has served as humanity's home in space for over 2 decades, but it wouldn't have been possible without the Space Shuttle. The shuttle was instrumental in delivering segments of the station and, of course, the astronauts who assembled it. It was a testament to the shuttle's versatility and reliability. However, the Space Shuttle era wasn't without its challenges. The program faced numerous setbacks, including the tragic losses of the Challenger and Columbia shuttles, which resulted in the unfortunate deaths of 14 brave astronauts. These incidents were stark reminders of the inherent risks of space exploration. They forced NASA and the world at large to reassess the risks and rewards of manned space travel. Despite the technological advancements and the significant role it played in constructing the ISS, the Space Shuttle program fell short of one of its original goals: reducing the cost of space travel. The promise of a cheaper ticket to space remained unfulfilled, proving that the path to space is still a costly endeavor. The Space Shuttle program, while groundbreaking, did not bring us closer to returning to the moon. It did, however, leave an indelible mark on space history, inspiring generations to dream about what's possible when we reach for the stars. In 1989, a renewed interest in lunar exploration emerged with the Space Exploration Initiative. This ambitious proposal was put forward by President George H.W. Bush, aimed at returning humans to the moon and even venturing onwards to Mars. The vision was grand, the excitement palpable. The Space Exploration Initiative was intended to rekindle the spirit of exploration, a new era of discovery. It aimed to establish a moon base and eventually land humans on Mars. The steps of the museum bore witness to this monumental announcement on July 20th, 1989, the 20th anniversary of Armstrong and Aldrin's legendary lunar walk. However, the dream was short-lived. A mere 90 days later, NASA's study produced a staggering estimate: $500 billion to make this dream a reality. The lofty dollar sign attached to this initiative was politically toxic. Congress, it seemed, quickly lost interest, and the initiative was shelved. Around the same time, NASA was grappling with other significant challenges that tarnished its reputation. The Challenger disaster of 1986 was a devastating blow. The world watched in horror as the shuttle exploded shortly after launch, claiming the lives of all 7 crew members. This tragic incident raised serious questions about the safety and viability of human space travel. And then came the Hubble Space Telescope debacle in 1990. What was supposed to be a triumph for NASA turned into an embarrassment. The Hubble, designed to give us unprecedented views of the cosmos, was launched with a flawed mirror, greatly reducing its effectiveness. This incident further fueled the perception of NASA as a bloated and bureaucratic organization, prone to cost overruns and failures. The end of the Cold War also meant a significant shift in the geopolitical landscape. The space race had lost its urgency, further undercutting the rationale for a civil space program on the scale of the Space Exploration Initiative. Despite ambitious plans, the dream of returning humans to the moon remained out of reach. The echoes of the Apollo era seemed to fade into the background, as a new century dawned with the moon still untouched by human footprints since 1972. Today, more than 5 decades after Apollo 17, the dream of returning to the moon is alive once more. The torch has been passed to a new generation of explorers, engineers, and scientists who are eager to pick up where Apollo left off. A key player in this renewed lunar quest is NASA's Artemis program, named after the twin sister of Apollo in Greek mythology. With Artemis, NASA aims to land the first woman and the next man on the moon by the late 2020s. But this time, it's not just about planting a flag and leaving footprints. The goal is to establish a sustainable human presence on the moon, paving the way for future voyages to Mars and beyond. Of course, returning to the moon is not without its challenges. The harsh lunar environment, the technical difficulties of landing and living on another celestial body, and the substantial costs involved are just a few of the hurdles that need to be overcome. But these challenges also present opportunities. For instance, the moon's vast reserves of water ice could be used to produce rocket fuel, making it a potential pit stop for spacecraft heading deeper into space. Moreover, lunar exploration could also yield significant scientific benefits. The moon is like a time capsule, its surface untouched for billions of years. Studying it could provide invaluable insights into the history of our own planet and the solar system at large. But perhaps most importantly, returning to the moon represents a collective aspiration, a testament to human ingenuity and determination. It's about pushing the boundaries of what's possible, about exploring the unknown in pursuit of knowledge and discovery. While it has taken more than 5 decades to make the journey back, The dream of once again setting foot on the lunar surface remains a driving force in the world of space exploration. As we look to the future, we can't help but be excited by the possibilities. The moon is no longer a distant, unreachable object in the night sky, but a new frontier waiting to be explored.